Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are opening a file that, honestly, looking at this massive stack of documents we have, it feels way less like a standard cold case and a lot more like a ticking time bomb.
Oh, absolutely. It really does.
We're heading south today, like way south.
Right into the swamp.
Exactly. We're looking at a story
Yeah.
set in the kind of Florida that, tourists absolutely never see.
Yeah, it is a completely different world down there. I mean, when people think of Florida, they usually think of the Magic Kingdom, right?
Or maybe South Beach.
Exactly. Neon lights, Art Deco, retirement communities with those perfectly manicured lawns.
Golf courses.
Yes, golf courses everywhere. But the sources we have today, they describe a place where the biology is just ancient.
It's primal.
Primal. And the politics are incredibly dirty.
Yeah.
And the stakes, as we'll see, are quite literally life and death.
Yeah, I was reading through these. We got surveillance logs, these personal journals, and some really detailed investigative notes. And it honestly feels like a noir novel just came to life.
It really reads like fiction, but it's not.
Right. We've got a missing, high-powered developer, a potential widow who's being actively stalked, and this is my favorite part, a marine biologist who seems to know way, way more about hand-to-hand combat than any scientist ever should.
It's a landscape of extreme contrasts, you know? You have this incredible, almost aggressive wealth in places like Sanibel Island or Coconut Grove.
The kind of money that just drips off the architecture.
Exactly. Gates, security, massive yachts. And then literally just a few miles inland, you hit the absolute untouched wildness of the Everglades.
A completely unforgiving environment.
Right. And in this specific case, those two worlds don't just touch, they collide. Violently.
So let's set the stage for you listening with the central mystery here. Everything kind of orbits around this one guy, Geoff Minster.
Geoff Minster, he's a classic archetype for this region, a very high-powered Miami developer.
The kind of guy who looks at a pristine mangrove forest and just sees a luxury condo complex.
Exactly. He reshapes skylines for a living. That is his entire identity.
Or, well, it was. Until October 27th.
Right.
Because that is the day Geoff Minster supposedly vanishes off the face of the earth.
The official story, the one given to the authorities, is that he falls off a boat.
On his way to Bimini, right?
Yes. Heading out to the Bahamas. They say he falls overboard and drowns in the Gulf Stream.
And nobody is ever found.
Which, honestly, in maritime cases, isn't that uncommon.
The ocean is big.
It is. And the Gulf Stream is incredibly powerful. It sweeps things away fast. But, and this is a big, but it's also the absolute perfect setup for a staged disappearance.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Nobody, no crime scene, just the open water.
Exactly. And for 6 months, that's exactly where the story stood. It was just a tragedy at sea. A wealthy man gone too soon.
Until, and this is where the stack of sources we're looking at gets really, really interesting, a photograph surfaces.
Digital photograph?
Right, a digital photo.
Yeah.
And the timestamp on this photo is from months after his supposed drowning.
Months later.
And it shows Geoff Minster relaxing on a beach, looking very much alive, very tan, very relaxed.
Not looking like a man who drowned in the Gulf Stream.
Not at all. So the mission for our deep dive today is to really unpack this specific mystery.
Right.
Is he a dead man walking?
Right.
Is this just a simple cut and dry case of insurance fraud? Or is it something much, much darker?
It's a great question to frame this with, because if we look at the source material, specifically these personal accounts from that marine biologist we mentioned.
Marion Ford.
Yes, though everyone in the notes just calls him Doc.
Yeah.
If we look at Doc Ford's accounts, we realize this isn't just about a missing husband at all.
It's way better.
It is a massive convergence of threats. We have a cult of personality.
Which we'll get into. It's wild.
We have massive multi-million-dollar financial fraud. And we have a plot that can really only be described as eco-terrorism.
Targeting the Everglades.
Targeting the very bedrock of the Everglades.
It sounds like a summer blockbuster movie plot, doesn't it? But when you read these notes, the gritty, mundane details make it feel all too real.
Oh, absolutely.
So let's start with the players. You mentioned Doc Ford. He's basically our primary window into this whole crazy world.
He is.
On the surface, he's just a marine biologist. He runs a place called Sanibel Biological Supply.
Right. He lives in this cool old stilt house right on Dinkins Bay.
Just spending his days collecting jellyfish and, slimy things from the ocean for university labs to study.
It sounds like an incredibly quiet, contemplative life.
Very peaceful.
But that is just the cover. Or at least it's the current reality he is trying very hard to maintain.
Yeah, because the notes hint at something else entirely.
If you dig into Ford's background, As the sources suggest, there is a lot of dark history there.
Intelligence work, right?
Yes. Black ops is the specific term that keeps coming up in the margins. He has a very specific, lethal set of skills.
Which explains how he looks at the world.
Exactly. The
Yeah.
way he analyzes situations, it's not just scientific, like a biologist observing a specimen. It's highly tactical.
He's always assessing threats.
Always. He creates this aura of safety for the people around him, his friends, his quirky neighbors at the marina. But internally, he's a man who analyzes everything based on angles of attack.
He's looking for the exit routes.
Right. He is a predator living among prey, essentially, but he's actively chosen to be a protector.
Which really comes in handy when an old friend shows up at his lab one day, absolutely terrified.
Sally Minster.
Geoff Minster's widow.
Or widow, depending on how you interpret that time-stamped photo from the beach in Bimini.
Fair point. Now, Sally is a really fascinating character study in these documents.
She really is.
Because she used to be the ultimate corporate wife, living in this high-end, exclusive Coconut Grove community called Ironwood.
She played the part perfectly, hosted the lavish parties, wore the right clothes, smiled for the cameras.
But after her husband's disappearance, and actually the notes say even before that, during the slow breakdown of their marriage, she underwent a massive transformation.
She did. She found religion.
She became a born-again Christian.
And the sources are very careful to distinguish this for us. This isn't just some passing fad for her. She isn't doing it for show.
Right, it's genuine.
Extremely genuine. She is actively trying to live a simple, pious life. She's moved away from all the glitz and the fake friends in Miami.
But despite her trying to just find some peace and quiet, she is being hunted.
Hunted is definitely the right word for it.
She tells Doc Ford she's being followed. Someone is breaking into her house. But they aren't stealing her jewelry or her electronics.
No, and that's the real psychological terror of this situation. They're just moving things around.
Oh, that is so creepy.
It's terrifying. They leave things just slightly different enough to let her know they were inside her house while she was gone.
It's gaslighting.
Textbook gaslighting.
Now,
it's designed to make her feel completely unsafe in her own sanctuary, to make her question her own sanity.
And it pushes her right to the edge. So when she arrives at Ford's lab on Sanibel Island, she drops an absolute bombshell on him.
She does.
She says the guy who has been following her is right there, outside.
Watching them from the mangroves.
Just picturing that gives me chills. This is the real catalyst for the whole story. The conflict isn't theoretical anymore. It's not just paranoia, it's physical.
And the setting here is crucial to how this plays out. We have a storm rolling in off the coast. A classic violent Florida squall.
Oh, I know those storms. The sky turns that weird, bruised purple color. The barometric pressure just drops out of nowhere.
The air gets heavy.
Yeah, and suddenly it's just a solid wall of water and wind.
Exactly. And Ford, remembering his tactical background, decides to use that noise and that chaos to his advantage.
Because most normal people would just call the police, lock the doors, and hide, right?
Exactly. But Ford decides to go on the offensive. He decides to flank the stalker.
Okay, let's unpack this confrontation, because it tells us so much about the people involved here. It's not just a messy bar brawl. It's like a chess match in the mud.
That's a great way to put it.
Ford slips out the back into the storm, and he wades directly into the mangroves.
And if you listening have never actually been in a mangrove swamp, it is not a pleasant place to be on a good day, let alone in a squall.
It's awful.
It's this impenetrable tangle of roots. It smells like sulfur and rotting vegetation. You sink up to your knees in this black muck.
And the bugs.
Oh, the bugs. It is full of spiders. Specifically, the sources mention the golden orb weaver.
Oh, those the big ones?
The very big ones. The ones that weave those massive, tough yellow webs right at face height.
Ugh, nightmare fuel.
Right. But Ford is crawling through this muck in the pouring rain, completely ignoring the massive spiders, trying to get the drop on this guy.
And he realizes the stalker isn't actually on the ground.
He's up in a tree.
A buttonwood tree, right?
Yes, a buttonwood. He took the high ground. It's a textbook surveillance position. He has a clear line of sight right into Ford's lab, but he's elevated to stay out of the immediate line of sight of anyone walking out the door.
Smart. But then nature kind of intervenes. Gravity takes over.
The guy falls.
Because the bark is wet from the squall.
Exactly. He slips. The storm makes the bark incredibly slick. It's this moment of chaotic realism that I absolutely love in these sources.
It's not like a choreographed Hollywood movie.
Right. It's not a ninja movie where everyone lands perfectly on their feet. He slips, tumbles out of the tree, and hits the mud hard.
But what happens next? This is where it gets highly technical.
Hmm.
Ford expects this to be a standard, easy takedown.
He does.
He moves in and throws a solid punch, fully expecting the guy to just fold.
Right. Ford is a very strong guy. He hits him hard. He expects to just overwhelm this creepy, peeping Tom. But the stalker completely absorbs the hit.
He just takes it.
Takes it, and then he immediately counters.
And he doesn't just swing back wildly like a street fighter.
No. The source notes describe very specific biomechanics happening in the mud here. The stalker executes an arm drag.
Okay.
And then he tries to secure what's called a grapevine with his legs.
Okay, so for those of us who didn't spend our high school years sweating on a wrestling mat, what exactly are we looking at here? What is a grapevine?
A grapevine is a very specific controlling move in wrestling. You weave your legs through your opponent's legs to immobilize them and completely control their hips.
So you trap them.
Exactly. It requires a lot of technique. It's not something you do by accident. But the real tell, the exact moment Ford realizes he has made a mistake and is in serious trouble, is when the stalker executes a Granby roll.
A Granby roll. Honestly, that sounds like a pastry you'd get at a bakery.
I know, it does. But it is far from it. A Granby roll is a highly advanced defensive escape maneuver.
How does it work?
Imagine you're on the ground, face down, and someone is on top of you, controlling your back and your hips. To escape that dominant position, you violently tuck your shoulder and roll across your own upper back.
Like a somersault?
Sort of, but sideways and inverted. You invert yourself to create sudden separation and end up facing your opponent. It requires immense core strength, flexibility, and proprioception.
Proprioception meaning knowing exactly where your body is in space. For you.
Exactly, even when you are upside down in the mud?
So you definitely don't just pull off a Granby roll by accident in a panic.
Never. You have to drill that specific movement for thousands of hours on a mat to make it muscle memory. So seeing this supposed amateur stalker do that seamlessly in the swamp tells Ford instantly that this isn't a street fight.
It's an elite athletic contest.
Right. And Ford knows this because, as the notes reveal, he was a high-level wrestler, too.
Exactly. So suddenly, amidst all this thunder and rain and mud, you have this crazy moment of mutual recognition.
They realize what the other one is.
Right. They aren't just fighting for survival anymore. They are actively communicating through the physical language of wrestling. They realize they are absolute peers.
Which instantly changes the entire dynamic. Ford stops trying to knock him out and starts trying to figure out who the hell he is.
And then comes the twist that, well, honestly, I laughed out loud reading this part of the notes.
It is brilliant.
In the middle of this elite grapple, the stalker just suddenly starts violently vomiting.
It is such a bizarre detail to include, but it adds so much texture to the scene. He is incredibly sick.
Not because of the punch, though.
No, not the punch. Because he was chewing tobacco.
Wait, what? While doing surveillance in a tree?
Yes. This guy, the stalker, is actively trying to blend in. He thinks to himself, okay, I'm down in the Florida Everglades. I need to look like a local redneck. So he buys a pouch of chewing tobacco and puts a massive wad of it in his cheek.
Oh, no.
But he's a city guy. He is absolutely not used to it. And when Ford punched him in the gut,
He swallowed it.
he swallowed the juice.
Oh, that is disgusting.
Which, if you don't know, is basically pure concentrated nicotine poison. It completely incapacitates him.
His body just rejects it.
Completely. He goes from being this highly lethal, trained threat to a retching, helpless mess in the mud in a matter of seconds.
That is fantastic. It completely deflates all the tension of the fight. So once he's finally done emptying his stomach, they sit up and actually talk. And we finally meet Frank D'Antoni.
Frank D'Antoni, who it turns out is not a hitman. He is not some crazy cult enforcer. He is a private investigator from New York.
An ex-NYPD detective.
Right. Ex-cop, ex-college wrestler.
And he is definitely 100% not a Florida local.
Not at all. He hates the bugs, he hates the humidity, he hates the mud, and he clearly cannot handle the chewing tobacco.
But he is down there for a very specific reason.
Yes. He has been officially hired by Everglades Home and Life.
Which is Geoff Minster's life insurance company.
Correct. And this revelation just completely shifts the entire narrative for Ford and for us. We aren't just dealing with a creepy stalker in the bushes, we are dealing with a high-stakes corporate investigation.
Because there is serious, serious money on the table here.
$4.5 million.
Wow.
That is the face value of Geoff Minster's massive life insurance policy.
Okay, so this brings up a legal concept that D'Antoni explains to Ford while they're cleaning up. And I really want to spend a minute on this because it totally blew my mind reading the sources. The incontestability clause.
It is a fascinating, obscure corner of insurance law that most people have no idea exists.
Right, because I always assumed, and I think most people assume, that if you commit suicide, or if you blatantly lie on your original insurance application about your health,
Hmm.
the company just doesn't have to pay out. That seems like basic common sense, right?
You would definitely think so. And to be fair, for the very first 2 years of a new life insurance policy, that is absolutely true.
Okay.
That initial window is called the contestability period. During that time, the insurance company has the right to investigate everything when you die. If they find out you didn't disclose a heart condition, denied.
Makes sense.
If you take your own life, denied.
But after those 2 years are up,
After 2 years pass, the policy legally becomes incontestable, meaning that even if the insurance company later finds out you flat out lied on the application, or, and this is the real kicker for this case, even if the official cause of death is ruled a suicide, they must pay the beneficiary.
that just seems insane to me. Why would the law ever allow that kind of loophole?
It sounds crazy, but it's actually designed as a massive consumer protection law.
Really? How?
It prevents huge insurance companies from happily taking your premium payments every month for 30 years. And then the moment you die, digging up some incredibly minor, honest error on your original application just to avoid paying your grieving widow.
Ah, okay. I see.
It forces the insurance companies to do all their rigorous due diligence up front during those first 2 years. Once that window closes, they are on the hook. Period.
So bringing it back to this case, Geoff Minster had his policy active for more than 2 years.
Exactly. He was well past the contestability period. So even if he intentionally threw himself off that boat to kill himself because of debt, the company legally has to hand Sally Minster a check for $4.5 million.
There's no getting out of it for them.
The only possible way the insurance company can get out of paying that massive claim is if they can definitively prove actual fraud.
Meaning.
Specifically, if they can prove that Geoff Minster isn't actually dead.
And that is exactly why Frank D'Antoni is hiding in the bushes. He's not stalking Sally to hurt her or scare her. He's watching her house to see if her secretly dead husband sneaks back in the middle of the night to collect his cash.
Precisely. The insurance company strongly suspects Minster faked his death to let the clock run out on his debts or to escape complete financial ruin, and now they are on the hook for millions. They need proof of life. They need a photo.
And D'Antoni firmly thinks he already has it.
He does.
He shows Doc Ford that digital photo we mentioned at the start. Geoff Minster on a bright, sunny beach in Bimini with a woman who is definitely not Sally.
And again, the timestamp on that digital file is the absolute key. It's dated months after the reported drowning.
But this is where Doc Ford's intelligence background really kicks in and changes the game. He looks at the photo, he processes the information, and he asks a question that D'Antoni, the ex-cop, hasn't even considered.
Right. Ford asks, why would someone fake the date?
It's such a brilliant piece of tactical deduction.
It completely flicks the board. If you are Geoff Minster and you want to disappear forever, you want everyone in the world to believe you are dead at the bottom of the Gulf Stream.
You want the file closed permanently.
Exactly. You do not want a clear photograph surfacing that shows you alive and well months later, because that instantly keeps the investigation open. It keeps relentless people like D'Antoni on your tail.
So Ford thinks
Yeah.
the photo is a complete setup.
Ford suspects that Geoff Minster might actually be very dead. Murdered, perhaps. And someone else entirely changed the digital timestamp on an old vacation photo to make it look like he was still alive much later.
Wait, but why would a killer intentionally want the police to think their victim is still alive? That seems counterintuitive.
It's a massive distraction. If the police and the insurance investigators firmly believe Minster is alive and just partying down in the Bahamas, they're looking for a missing person, or they're looking for a white-collar fraudster. They are definitely not looking for a rotting corpse. And they aren't looking for a murder weapon. It essentially turns a high-priority homicide investigation into a slow-moving white-collar crime investigation. It buys the killer an incredible amount of time to cover their tracks.
That is just diabolical.
Yeah.
It creates this complete labyrinth of possibilities. But to understand why someone might actually want Minster dead, or why Minster might be wishing he was dead to escape his life, we have to look at who he was financially involved with right before he vanished.
Yes.
And this is where the story gets really, really dark.
We have to talk about the cult.
The International Church of Ashram Meditation,
A very grand, sweeping name for a very, very dangerous organization.
led by a charismatic man who demands everyone call him Bhagwan Shiva,
But as the background checks show, his real name is Jerry Singh.
which is significantly less mystical.
Just a bit. Jerry Singh is, at his core, a failed businessman who completely reinvented himself. And the source material we have paints a very cynical, but honestly very accurate picture of how these types of organizations often function behind closed doors.
It's not just a church where people meditate.
Not at all. It's a vertical business conglomerate. It's a corporation masking as a religion.
They own massive tracts of real estate. They own these exclusive theme villages around Florida. And I love this detail from the notes. Shiva collects vintage Rolls Royces.
He has an entire fleet of them, including a pristine 1923 Silver Ghost.
Which begs the question, why does a supposedly enlightened ascetic spiritual guru need a 1923 Silver Ghost?
It's entirely about the projection of power. In the twisted logic of the cult, his extreme material wealth is offered as tangible proof of his spiritual favor.
Oh, I see.
The logic goes,
Yeah.
if he is wildly rich, it's because the universe clearly loves him and rewards his enlightenment. Therefore, if you, the follower, want the universe to love and reward you, you should give all your money to him.
That is a very neat trick, a closed loop of logic.
Mm.
But the way he actively maintains control over his followers isn't just through showing off fancy cars.
Yeah.
The notes go into detail about a practice they call auditing,
Yes.
which sounds a lot like, well, other prominent groups we've all heard of.
It borrows heavily from techniques used by groups like Scientology, according to the source compiler. Auditing, in this specific context, is a brutal, exhausting psychological process.
It's not reviewing taxes.
No, it involves severe sleep deprivation, intense verbal abuse, and endless repetitive questioning.
How does the process actually work? What do they do to people?
They isolate you. They put you in a small room. They deliberately keep you awake for days at a time until your defenses are gone, and then they just hammer you. They ask you repeatedly about your deepest childhood traumas, your worst sins, your darkest fears.
They break you down.
They completely break down your ego. They convince you that your old self, what they call your reactive mind, is completely worthless and toxic. They effectively kill your original personality so they can rebuild a new one entirely in the image of the cult's obedience.
And Geoff Minster, this incredibly successful, wealthy, alpha male Miami developer, he actually fell for this.
It's a very common misconception that only weak or gullible people join cults.
Right, you'd think it wouldn't happen to a CEO.
But high performers are often very susceptible because they are already used to high-stakes, high-reward environments where you give everything to the company. Minster was incredibly stressed before he vanished. He was dangerously over-leveraged.
He owed a lot of money.
He had built these massive, sprawling theme communities, places like Cross Country and Audubon Estates, and he was bleeding money fast. The banks were closing in.
So he was truly desperate.
And Shiva swooped in and offered him a miracle way out, a partnership, a massive capital infusion to save his legacy. But the hidden price was total, unquestioning submission. Minster had to sign over everything to the church, his business assets, his executive decisions, and ultimately, his mind.
And Sally, his wife, she was forced to go through this grueling auditing process too.
She did, but the crucial difference is she didn't break.
She held out.
And this is a really important thematic distinction in the story. Sally found immense strength in her own private, quiet faith.
Her born-again Christianity.
Right. She held on to something internal that Shiva simply couldn't touch or manipulate. It sets up this really fascinating ideological conflict. Sally's genuine, quiet faith versus Shiva's loud, manufactured, capitalist religion.
But Shiva isn't doing all the dirty work and intimidation himself. A flashy guru needs a fixer. Yet he needs a very serious one on the payroll. A man named Izzy Klein.
Izzy Klein is terrifying specifically because he is so deeply competent. He isn't some starry-eyed, brainwashed follower who will make a mistake out of zealotry. He's ex-Mossad, a high-level security expert.
So he doesn't actually believe that Jerry Singh is a god.
Not for a single second. The notes are very explicit about this dynamic. Izzy has what he calls the water into wine theory.
What's that?
He fundamentally believes that all religion throughout history is just legend manipulated by cheap illusion. To him, Shiva is nothing more than a very good con artist, and Izzy is just the cynical stage manager making sure the hidden wires don't show during the magic trick.
Yeah.
He's solely in it for the massive paycheck.
And he's the one who's been actively invading Sally's privacy, moving her things around to gaslight her. The notes detail how he even installed hidden micro cameras inside her house.
Yes. In her bedroom, in her bathroom. It's intensely voyeuristic and predatory. He sits out in a nondescript van down the street or in a hidden back room and just watches her every move. It's an absolute violation of her safety. But he's not just a creepy peeping Tom, he's highly violent.
Yeah, there's a detail in the investigative notes about Sally's dog, Mango.
Yeah.
And honestly, this part was really hard to read.
It's brutal, but it firmly establishes the very real threat level we're dealing with. The dog, Mango, barked at Izzy while he was sneaking around the property late at night, setting up cameras.
Right.
A normal criminal might panic or run away to avoid drawing attention. Izzy didn't panic, he didn't run, he just coldly neutralized the threat. He killed the dog right there just to maintain his operational cover.
That is sociopathic.
It shows a complete chilling lack of empathy. We aren't dealing with eccentric hippies in flowing robes chanting mantras. We are dealing with cold-blooded, trained operatives who view living things as mere obstacles to be removed.
So let's step back and look at the board. We have a dead or missing developer, a determined insurance investigator, a lethal marine biologist, and a massive wealthy cult. But what is the actual endgame here? Why does a spiritual cult need a real estate developer like Minster in the first place? They aren't just building meditation ashrams in the swamp.
No, they are thinking much, much bigger than that. It's all about what the sources refer to as the New Buffalo.
The New Buffalo. That sounds like a cryptic military code name.
It's actually a socio-political term often used to describe Indian gaming.
Ah, okay. Casinos.
Exactly. For many Native American tribes across the country, massive casino complexes have become the primary economic survival mechanism, functioning much like the buffalo did in the 19th century.
Right. It provides for everything.
It's the new resource that feeds the tribe, provides modern housing, funds education, and pays for healthcare.
So where does a fake guru like Shiva fit into tribal gaming?
The complex legal framework is the key to understanding the scam here. Because federally recognized tribes are legally considered sovereign nations, they have a large degree of independence from standard state laws.
Okay.
Meaning they can operate massive Class 2 and Class 3 gaming facilities, full-scale casinos, in areas where the state government strictly prohibits it, provided they secure a legal compact. It is quite literally a license to print money outside state jurisdiction.
So Shiva desperately wants to get into the lucrative casino business.
Desperately. He has this grand vision to build massive, sprawling casinos on the land directly bordering the Seminole and Miccosukee reservations deep in the Everglades. He already has the blueprints. He calls the mega project Casino Lakes.
But there's a massive catch, isn't there? You can't just stroll up and build a casino on tribal land without the tribe's express permission and partnership.
Exactly. And the sovereign tribes, the Seminole and the Miccosukee, have flat out refused to work with him. They don't trust Shiva at all. They see right through the Guru Act.
So if they stubbornly refuse to partner with him, the whole billion-dollar deal is dead in the water.
Unless you violently change the variables. And this is where Shiva's raging narcissism and Izzy Klein's cold ruthlessness converge into a plan that is truly insane.
Tell me.
If the tribes won't sign a partnership deal willingly, Shiva plans to force them into a position of absolute terror and vulnerability. He plans to stage a literal miracle.
A miracle? Like what, parting the Red Sea? Turning water into wine?
A prophecy. The source material dives into historical context here, referencing Tecumseh, the great Shawnee leader.
Okay, historical detour, I'm with you.
In 1811, Tecumseh accurately predicted a massive, devastating earthquake to his followers. When the New Madrid earthquakes actually hit soon after, which were historically some of the strongest quakes in North American history, it gave Tecumseh immense, almost godlike power and credibility.
Wow.
It instantly unified the disparate tribes behind him because he literally seemed to command the earth itself to shake.
And Shiva thinks he can replicate that.
He wants to predict an earthquake. He wants to stand up in front of the tribal leaders and say, the earth will shake on Palm Sunday because I say so.
But we're talking about Florida. Florida does not have earthquakes. We're sitting on a flat limestone shelf. It's absolutely not a seismic zone.
Not naturally, no, but Izzy Klein is actively manufacturing one.
How on earth do you manufacture a localized earthquake?
Through basic chemistry and a lot of geology, Izzy has been systematically stealing ammonium nitrate fertilizer. Tons and tons of it.
Where do you even get that much?
He's quietly siphoning it off from the landscaping supplies of the massive golf courses owned by the cult's various real estate developments.
Ammonium nitrate. Wait, that's the exact same stuff used in the Oklahoma City bombing, right?
Precisely. It is a highly volatile commercial-grade explosive when you mix it with fuel oil. It's called ANFO. Izzy is mixing this stolen fertilizer with diesel fuel in massive quantities. And he's not just making a single truck bomb to blow up a building. He is actively boring holes and burying tons of this explosive slurry deep underground, right into the fragile limestone bedrock near the reservation borders.
So the master plan is, Shiva boldly predicts the quake to the tribes. Izzy waits in the distance and pushes the detonator button. The ground literally shakes for miles. And the terrified tribes suddenly think Shiva is a literal god.
Or at the very least, they are so terrified of his apparent power that they feel completely compelled to align with him and sign the casino compact. It is extreme psychological warfare backed by high explosives.
But the environmental impact of that, if you set off a massive subterranean explosion inside the limestone bedrock of the Everglades.
That is the true existential horror of the plan. And ironically, Izzy actually warns Shiva about the specific danger, but Shiva is so obsessed with the casinos he doesn't care.
The damage would be catastrophic.
The Florida Everglades sits directly on top of a very delicate, porous limestone plate. It functions almost exactly like a giant sponge that holds the entire aquifer. That is the fresh water supply for millions of people in South Florida, and it's the lifeblood of the entire unique ecosystem.
So if you crack that limestone sponge with a bomb,
You completely destroy the water table. Massive saltwater intrusion from the ocean could occur immediately. You could literally drain the entire wetlands dry. They are more than willing to risk permanent ecological collapse, destroying the Everglades forever, just to secure a gambling contract.
that is absolutely terrifying. It really is. So the stakes are fully set now. We have a massive ecological disaster looming, a multi-million-dollar fraud investigation, and a widow being stalked by an assassin. And the only people standing in the way of all this are, well, let's call them a very motley crew.
To say the very least, it is the most unlikely alliance imaginable.
We have Doc Ford, the tactical biologist. We have Frank D'Antoni, the cynical meathead PI from New York. And then we have Tomlinson.
Tomlinson. We definitely haven't talked enough about him yet.
We really haven't, and he's fascinating. Tomlinson is Doc Ford's best friend and neighbor.
Yeah.
But honestly, they couldn't be more fundamentally different.
Tomlinson is the absolute wild card in this whole scenario. He's an aging counterculture mystic. He is a certified genius-like, legitimate, documented genius-level IQ. But he's also a very heavy substance user.
Yeah, the notes make it clear he's constantly stoned, drunk, or actively experimenting with something.
Exactly. And the notes also mention this hilarious detail that he's accidentally internationally famous.
Yes. Years ago, he wrote a rambling book called One Fathom Above Sea Level, which apparently somehow became a massive Bible for hippies and New Agers over in Europe. He has this massive cult following that he doesn't even want or acknowledge.
The interpersonal dynamic between Frank D'Antoni and Tomlinson is just pure comedy gold in the investigative notes. You have D'Antoni, this gruff, cynical New York ex-cop who just wants to eat a steak, drink a normal beer, and genuinely thinks everyone in Florida has lost their minds.
Right.
And then sitting next to him, you have Tomlinson, who is, well, what exactly is he doing out in the swamp?
Tomlinson is actively trying to telepathically communicate with the skunk ape.
The skunk ape.
Yeah, it's basically the deep Florida version of Bigfoot, a giant, smelly swamp primate. Tomlinson firmly believes the deep Everglades is a power place, like a mystical vortex of converging energy. He genuinely thinks he can sit there and send telepathic signals to the undiscovered wildlife.
And D'Antoni's reaction to this must be priceless.
Oh, D'Antoni just looks at him like he's a newly discovered alien species. He constantly refers to him as a burned-out hippie.
Yeah.
But, and this is the thematic key to their group, they absolutely need each other to survive this.
How so? They seem useless together.
Because they each bring a vital piece. Ford provides the overarching tactical strategy. He's the brain. D'Antoni provides the sheer physical muscle, plus he provides the legal cover of an official insurance investigation to justify them poking around. But Tomlinson...
What does Tomlinson provide? The snacks?
Tomlinson actually provides the vital cultural bridge. Because of his mystical leanings, He knows the deep history of the indigenous people in the area. He inherently understands the spirit and the layout of the land in a way the others simply don't. He realizes early on that to actually stop a megalomaniac like Shiva, they can't just use guns and legal subpoenas. They have to deeply understand the land they are fighting on.
That makes a lot of sense. So this bizarre team finally assembles. They pile into a vehicle together, probably Doc Ford's beat-up old truck, and they head straight into the deep glades. And the journey itself is described so vividly in the source material. They take the old Timiami Trail.
It is described as a literal journey from modern civilization back into the ancient wild. You leave the bright coastal condos and the air-conditioned strip malls behind, and suddenly, within minutes, you are entirely swallowed up in this alien world of dark cypress domes and endless sawgrass savannas.
And the heat.
The heat is oppressive. The notes describe the humidity as a physical, suffocating weight just pushing down on your chest.
And for Frank D'Antoni, the ultimate city boy, it's absolute hell on earth.
He's sweating through his clothes, he's miserable, he's terrified of stepping on a snake. But for Ford and Tomlinson, it's completely different. It's almost like they are going to church. They deeply respect the wildness of it.
But they aren't going there to pray. They are heading straight for the belly of the beast, a place called Sawgrass.
Right.
This is the cult's highly exclusive, heavily guarded theme community where the massive casino project is actually being staged.
And when they finally get there, the visual they encounter is completely shocking to them. They expect to see pristine nature, maybe some luxury hunting cabins. Instead, they see total devastation.
The notes literally call it a moonscape.
Exactly. Thousands of acres where the unique ancient cypress forest has just been brutally bulldozed into flat dirt. These were virgin bald cypress stands.
Trees that take hundreds of centuries to grow.
Just gone, flattened into gray dust to make way for massive parking lots and slot machine pavilions.
How do they possibly get away with that? Isn't that massively illegal under federal environmental law?
Ford explains this to D'Antoni, and it points out what they call the permit loophole. It's an incredibly cynical, real-world developer tactic in Florida.
How does it work?
You simply build the illegal project first, as fast as humanly possible. You clear-cut and destroy the ecosystem immediately before anyone notices. Then, months later, when the EPA or the state environmental agency finally comes calling with clipboards, you just shrug and say, "Oops, my mistake. I misread the zoning map."
Wow.
You happily pay the multi-million-dollar fine as a cost of doing business. But the trees are already gone, the critical habitat is destroyed, the damage is permanently done. It's simply easier for the overwhelmed government bureaucracy to just issue a retroactive building permit and take the fine money than to try and force a developer to magically replant a virgin forest that will take 500 years to grow back.
That is absolutely infuriating.
It's the grim reality of aggressive Florida development.
So the team arrives at the gates of the Sawgrass Club. They absolutely need to get inside the main lodge to find hard proof of the underground bomb plot before Palm Sunday. But the physical security is incredibly tight. Armed guards and pith helmets, heavy iron gates, cameras, the works.
They definitely can't fight their way in, so Ford uses social engineering instead.
Right.
He tells D'Antoni and Tomlinson to just act like they belong there. Walk like you own the place. It's entirely about projecting wealthy confidence. And amazingly, it works. They drive right past the bewildered guards and slip in through the service entrance.
And once they get inside the main building, it's like stepping into a completely different world. It's not a sweaty swamp anymore. It's a hyper-luxurious hunting lodge.
Right.
Massive taxidermy heads on the wood-paneled walls, incredibly wealthy patrons drinking expensive cocktails at noon. But they notice the staff. The staff is deeply weird.
The staff are all core ashram members. One of the patrons actually calls them choir boys. They are polite, highly efficient, constantly smiling, but Ford notices there is absolutely nothing behind their eyes.
Dead eyes.
They are completely, thoroughly brainwashed by the auditing. It gives the whole bustling lodge this incredibly creepy Stepford Wives vibe.
And this is exactly where they run into a man named Carter McRae. Who is he in the grand scheme of things?
Carter McRae is basically the cynical truth teller in this artificial environment. He's a very wealthy businessman, and critically, he was one of the original major investors who funded Shiva.
But he's not drinking the Kool-Aid anymore.
No. They find him sitting alone at the high-end bar, heavily drunk at noon.
Which is always a fantastic sign of a stable organization.
In this specific case, it actually is. Because his alcoholism is his only escape from what he's done. He tells them he uses the booze as his personal bullshit detector. He spots Ford, D'Antoni, and Tomlinson immediately. He knows instantly they aren't rich club members.
Does he immediately call the pith helmet guards to turn them in?
No, surprisingly, he doesn't. He actually invites them to sit and talks to them. Because at this point, he actively despises Shiva. McRae really represents the deep regret of the wealthy enablers. He happily helped fund this monster early on because he was greedy and wanted a massive return on his investment. But now he looks out the window and sees the sheer ecological destruction. He interacts with the vacant robotic choir boy staff. He sees Shiva's spiraling, dangerous megalomania firsthand, and he deeply hates himself for helping create it.
So he confirms their suspicions. He confirms that Shivajari Singh just uses this exclusive club and the religion as his personal, consequence-free playground.
Yes, exactly. And he confirms that the other wealthy, elite investors who funded this whole charade are finally starting to get genuinely terrified of the uncontrollable monster they've unleashed.
So let's bring all these disparate threads together as we wrap up. We have the clock loudly ticking down. Palm Sunday is rapidly approaching. That is the hard deadline for the prophecy and the bomb.
The convergence is tightening on everyone. The tension is peaking.
We have Sally Minster back on the island, who is actively refusing to take the $4.5 million insurance money because she deeply suspects it's dirty blood money.
Which really proves her moral compass is arguably the strongest and purest thing in this entire story.
Absolutely. Then we have her missing husband, Geoff Minster, who might currently be dead at the bottom of the ocean, might be happily partying on a beach in Bimini, or, as Doc Ford strongly suspects, might have been a useful pawn who was violently discarded by Izzy Klein months ago.
And at the center of the storm, we have the fake guru Shiva and his ex-Mossad triggerman Izzy Klein sitting on a literal mountain of highly explosive ammonium nitrate, just waiting to blow a massive hole in the Florida crust to fake a divine miracle.
It creates a pressure cooker situation where the ultimate solution simply cannot be a legal one.
Right.
D'Antoni, being the ex-cop, desperately wants to just serve legal papers. He wants to call the authorities and do this by the book. But Ford, with his black ops background, realizes that a printed subpoena is not going to stop a massive chemical explosion. Legal papers will not stop a heavily armed fanatic like Izzy Klein.
They have to completely go off the grid to stop this. They are knowingly heading straight into a lethal trap, but it's a trap they have to intentionally spring if they want any chance to stop the ecological destruction.
And if you just step back and think about the thematic weight of this trio going into the swamp, you have a biologist representing pure science.
Right.
You have a mystic representing pure spirit. And you have a former cop representing the law. And they're teaming up to save the ancient wilderness from a false prophet who represents pure, unchecked capitalist greed.
It really makes you pause and think about the true nature of belief, doesn't it?
That is absolutely the core theme woven through all these sources. You have Sally Minster, whose quiet, internal belief literally saved her sanity from the cult's auditing.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, you have Jerry Singh, who aggressively uses belief as a weapon and a highly profitable business model. He knows that people are incredibly desperate for meaning in their lives, and he cynically monetizes that desperation to buy Rolls Royces.
And sitting right in the middle of all this chaotic human drama, the millions of dollars, the religious cults, the obscure insurance policies, the wrestling matches in the mud, you have the Everglades itself.
The silent, massive character in the story.
Yeah.
The Everglades honestly doesn't care about Geoff Minster's money. It doesn't care about Shiva's fake gods. It just is. It is ancient, it is wet, and it is entirely indifferent to human ambition.
But despite being so vast, it's also incredibly fragile.
Incredibly fragile. And if that subterranean bomb goes off on Palm Sunday, if Izzy Klein actually cracks that delicate limestone plate, no amount of human belief and certainly no amount of corporate insurance money will ever bring the fresh water back.
It's permanent.
Once that ancient aquifer is shattered and drained, it's gone forever.
So the team is desperately racing against time to stop it. Palm Sunday is the absolute deadline.
And the explosives are already buried deep in the ground, wired and ready.
That wraps up our deep dive into the Everglades case file for today. It is a completely wild, terrifying ride through the swamp, but it really leaves you wondering, you know, when you drive down the highway past those massive brand new luxury developments in Florida, the ones with the huge fancy iron gates and the absolutely perfect landscaping,
Right.
what's actually buried underneath them? And how much of this fiction we just discussed is actually happening right now, just out of sight of the highway?
It's definitely a question worth asking next time you're down there. Stay curious.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll see you next time.